Hello, this is Almeda with Inspiring Minds. Today we have Saniqua again. She's here today to tell us about President Nixon and the Watergate scandal. Guys, it's so much that went on that I personally did not even know about. So each time she do a history excerpt is a lesson for me as well. She's our history buff in our family, but I hope you guys enjoy it. Very informative, very good. Just stay tuned. I'm about to put her on. All right, talk to you later.
Hi, this is Saniqua. We're Inspiring Minds. Don't have Amita with me this time. I'm in Houston with my brother, but I did promise you guys another excerpt in 2 months, and I am a day late. I thought I would, go ahead and put some in and then send it to Mita so she could upload it. Today we'll be talking about Watergate. Many people only know that Watergate is what caused President Nixon to be forced to resign from his presidency. But there's so much more that everyone should know, mainly because of what's going on in politics today. There are so many parallels. So first I'll talk about what actually Watergate is. It happened June 17, 1972. There was a break-in the Democratic National Committee headquarters, which was in the Watergate complex in Washington, D.C. And it led to the investigation that revealed multiple abuses of power by the Nixon administration. Okay, so the background of Nixon's campaign, what possibly led to these extreme measures that he took. At the midway point of his first presidential term, the U.S. was still at war in Vietnam, and the nation was divided. There were protests, people demanding that the troops be brought home immediately. Nixon, he did implement a strategy that, to replace American troops with South Vietnam troops and bring American troops home. But North Vietnam set offensive on and overran Cambodia, which is where South Vietnam and the U.S. were, and Nixon retaliated by bombing Cambodia. It was a ground invasion, and this caused further unrest in the United States against the perceived expansion of the war, as opposed to him curtailing the war, which he had promised when he came to office. One thing that happened was that in Ohio, a National Guardsman killed 4 unarmed students at Kent State University. All right, so due to the escalation of the bombing in Vietnam and Nixon's promise to curb the war, they felt that his promise to curb the war, they felt that he was being untruthful, and what he promised was not valid. So he saw a decline in his presidential ratings, and he just felt that a forceful presidential campaign was essential for his re-election. So he created the committee to re-elect the president also known as creep. Nixon set out to assure his reelection through an array of clandestine and often illegal activities, such as bugging offices and political opponents, as well as harassing activist groups and political figures. Now, creep broke into Watergate complex and stole copies of top secret documents and bugged the office's phones. Now, the wiretap did not work properly, so when they came back to replace the wiretaps, a security guard noticed that all the doors' locks were taped, and he called the police, and the police were able to arrive in time to catch the 5 burglars red-handed. The thing that kind of made everybody question what was going on was that they found like the phone number of the re-election committee, the White House phone number, and the personal belongings of the suspects. But Nixon gave a speech in which he swore that his White House staff was not involved. Most voters believed him, and in November of 1973, he was re-elected president in a landslide victory. After his re-election, however, it was found that Nixon was not being truthful. For instance, a few days after the Watergate break, he arranged to provide hundreds of thousands of dollars in hush money to the burglars. He also hatched a plan to instruct the CIA to impede the FBI's investigation into the crime. This was a more serious crime than the actual break-in because it was an abuse of presidential power as well as the deliberate obstruction of justice. Also at this time, a whistleblower known as Deep Throat, and decades later revealed to be Mark Felt, associate director of the FBI, was able to leak the burglars to Nixon. Okay, so 7 conspirators were indicted on charges related to Watergate affair. 5 pled guilty to avoid trial at the urging of Nixon's aides. The other 2 were convicted at trial in January 1973. During this time, some of Nixon's aides decided to testify before a grand jury about the president's crimes. White House counsel John Dean was the main witness. He revealed that Nixon had secretly taped every conversation that took place in the Oval Office, knowing that if they could get those tapes, they would have proof of Nixon's guilt. The prosecution subpoenaed the tapes. But Nixon proceeded to stall and keep the tapes from the summer through the fall of 1973, citing executive privilege. And when the prosecutor, whose name was Cox, refused to stop demanding the tapes, Nixon ordered he be fired by the district attorney. This led to several Justice Department personnel resigning in protest instead of firing Cox. This became known as the Saturday Night Massacre. Nixon surrendered at first some, but not all the tapes. Then he decided, I will give you all the tapes, but he gave transcripts instead of the real tapes. And then finally the Supreme Court ordered that he turn over all the tapes. And while he was dragging his feet in doing so, the Judiciary Committee voted to impeach him for obstruction of justice, abuse of power, criminal cover-up, and several violations of the Constitution. Finally, on August 5th, 1974, Nixon released the tapes, and in the face of certain impeachment by Congress, Nixon resigned in disgrace on August 8, 1974, and left office the following day. 6 weeks later, after Vice President Gerald Ford was sworn in as president, he pardoned Nixon for all crimes committed during his presidency while in office, as a way to put everything behind and to rebuild as a nation. Now, this is something that's happened after he was pardoned of everything and after everything was over. It's the kidnapping of Martha Mitchell, the wife of Nixon's Attorney General, John N. Mitchell. But he had resigned his role to become campaign manager of CREEP. And this all was brought to light on February of 1975 by one of the burglars when he was on trial, who knew Martha. He said that her husband knew that they knew each other and instructed the guards in her security detail not to let her contact media in fear of her knowing him, leading to them being able to link the burglary to Nixon. It was revealed that during the week following the burglary, she was held captive in a hotel in California and was physically abused, injured, and forcefully sedated. All right, so the reason I was saying that all of this is important is because, well, it's just important to know, remember, and learn from all of these events. Holding on to power through falsehoods, even in the face of defeat, ignoring and manipulating the Constitution, and making enemies of political opponents, as well as the media, they're all signs of that were seen in Nixon's presidency. And there are also signs that we saw recently and still see them presently. Looking back, we can plainly see what was attempted recently, and it's being kept alive by misinformation and the abuse of power. So like I said, it's just something that everyone needs to know, and they need to remember, and we need to learn from it. Thank you guys, and I would like you to like, subscribe, or comment, and you guys have a great day.